That's it. We're going live. Hey, everybody. This is Natalie Furness, and we are here today at the Launch No Code podcast. I have with me today Ben Tossell, who is the founder of Makerpad. And it's a pleasure to have you, Ben.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, I suppose this is our second live stream on YouTube now. So just to give our guests a little bit of an understanding of how this is going to work, we're going to start off with me doing a few questions that, kind of pre-prepared, kind of a bit of a chat with myself and Ben. And then after about 20 minutes, we are going to open up questions to the audience. So you guys will have the opportunity to ask anything. In fact, if you want to come in and ask Ben anything before that 20 minutes up, so if he says something that you actually want him to kind of clarify a little bit more, drop it in the comments below, and our producer will be feeding those back into the room. Okay, so we shall begin. So Ben, as I say, it's great to have you here. I've been following you for quite a while now because you're just one of those names that kind of everyone knows in the no-code space. But for me, what I'm interested in is, what did the no-code space actually look like when you joined?
It wasn't. It wasn't a thing. I didn't even know I was joining anything. I was just building something because I couldn't code in a way that I figured out that you could string things together. So it was never called the no code movement or anything like that. And every time I would tweet something about, oh, I built this thing without code, it was never quite like with hashtag no code or anything like that. So it was just a bit different then. I think people started paying attention. Tools were getting better. There was funding for bigger tools like Webflow and things like that were coming out, and it all became like this marketing term, I guess, that was catchier, quicker to say, and it sort of helped people find the identity of, oh yeah, I'm sort of that person too. I'm a builder or want to be builder, but I also can't. I'm not technical, so I'm in this like no code world, which yeah, it sort of just happened. I don't know. Some people can blame me for coining no code terms, but I don't actually know where or when that started. We should probably do some sort of Twitter search to find out where that came in.
Yeah. So in terms of the background and the kind of tools that you started out with, what did those look like? So I'm kind of with you in this whole like doing no code before no code was a thing, because I mean I've been using tools like HubSpot and automation and all those kind of things to build, like to put together random landing pages. But talk me through, like, what did the tools look like to you then? What were you using to build?
Yeah, I think one of my first things that I built was like a directory site for Alexa skills. So when like Alexa was coming out for the first time and all these new skills were coming out, I think I built something that was a card site. It was a simple one-page site that I made feel like it had multiple pages. And then there must have been some sort of like type form to submit stuff, and then Zapier that connected it back to something that I would then manually add to the site again. And I think this is where like the jump of what no code is now and what, like we said before, we were doing things without code previously, but it wasn't really this whole no code movement. I don't know whether it's like the web app jump. There's like, oh, there's things you can build now where people can log in and do stuff or have a membership site and like submit things or upvote stuff. I think there's something maybe there that is where like no code came in rather than just being, oh yeah, I can build a website in Squarespace, which wasn't previously sort of called no code, which I think, I mean, it definitely sits in the same space, so it should be really.
So I suppose I have a question off the back of that then. Do you think maybe this term no code came about so it could become an investable market?
I don't think so. I think it's just like when lots of people start talking about a thing, it becomes like a trendy thing and it's something to search. Like, what do you I don't know what we would type in Google if we were going to find stuff around this space. if it wasn't called something, like, yeah, I just don't know what you type in. And I don't think it's a market. I don't think it's like VR, AR, or like anything like that. I think it's just a infrastructure shift to software development. I just think it's like it's opened up another pool of the scale. I think, um, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a market, but it feels that way because people are talking about it in its like form of the no code space and things like that. So sometimes it's easier to
Mm.
identify that way. But
So what did you do? So when you were searching, when no code wasn't a thing, what did you Google? What did you search when you were trying to figure out how to build things?
I think I it was just like one of the first things I was trying to build, and I was at Product Hunt at the time, was like a Product Hunt clone. Like, how do I build something that lets me do that thing? Because it was more than a website. It was like you could log in, you'd have a profile, and you could do stuff that would be related to like your profile. So I started like trying to code some of those things. There was one, can't remember what it's called now, but it was supposed to be a really really easy way to replicate what Product Hunt was, and I just kept on getting stuck every single time. So I sort of gave up on the whole coding route for myself. And then I think because I was at Product Hunt, I got to see a lot of these tools and their launches. So I just thought of, oh, I can sort of make a submission form. I can just do that with a form builder, and I've seen Typeform. I used Typeform before, so why don't I use that? Um, and yeah, I probably did typing how to build X without coding. I probably typed that 1,000 times, probably. So it was probably that.
Cool. So it's kind of that idea of being in a place where you're seeing lots of innovative apps coming through. So they're kind of you're aware of them, you're aware of their functionality, and then kind of, I suppose it's your innovative mindset of like how to put those together. So you mentioned that one of your first ideas was effectively to copy Product Hunt. After that, what sort of ideas did you start having? Were they all kind of like copycat ideas to start with, or did you start thinking about like real problems? Like when did that shift?
I think it was lots of like X for Y's. So, like I said, one of the early things I built without code was a directory site for Alexa skills. So it was like, well, there's like app stores for apps. Why isn't there like a good place at the time? Why isn't there a good place to look for different Alexa skills that I want to add to my Alexa? Um, so I tried to do things that way, and I think, I mean, I was always the ideas person. I thought, oh, this type of thing would be cool to build, or this type of thing, or you'd see a YC company that would launch, and you'd think, oh, that would be good if it was in the UK or in the European market. And it wasn't so much like one startup goes global from day one. So I think there was room to like try some of these ideas, and I think it was just a way that I could just build a bunch of stuff. And I remember looking at the time at Rocket's Internet, which was it would build like Airbnb was big in the US or becoming big. Rocket Internet would spin up the exact same thing for the European market and then end up selling it to Airbnb for a huge amount of money. And I was like, oh, they're cool like ideas to do. So the actual like product and clone that I tried to do in the first place was a European version, I think. But yeah, I mean, the European version of Product Hunt is Product Hunt. It didn't need its own type site.
But that's really interesting, that idea of the fact that you can take an idea from another market or another industry or another country, and you can build it and you can still make it a success. And while Product Hunt wasn't necessarily an example of a company you could do that with, there's plenty of other opportunities out there for makers and developers and everybody to take ideas from other industries. I mean, have you taken any inspiration from anywhere else for any of your other ideas?
I mean, Makerpad is just a copy of something else for a different market. I think when you start building ideas and you build more than one and you build more than 20, you build more than 50, you realize that there's patterns of, okay, am I building a marketplace style site? If you're doing that, then lots of them look the same. They work the same. Airbnb works the same as, I'm trying to think of a good example now, like hip camp, the camping one. There's like lots of these work in a very similar way. So then you could really simplistically break them all down to say, oh, that's Airbnb for whatever. Sorry, my camera's just gone funny. So it's just a case of recognizing those patterns and feeling okay about the fact that you're doing X for Y. I think at one point there was like a bit of negativity on people doing X or Y comparisons, but it's the easiest way to explain something. It's the easiest way to sort of understand it from your own point of view. And I think it's like a good way to frame things so people get it. And it certainly helped me. I mean, like I said, Makerpad was, I didn't invent a membership site. I didn't invent tutorial websites or anything like that. I just took pieces from other startups or companies I've seen and thought I can piece them together in this one thing that like this other person's doing. So
Cool. So I think now you've mentioned Makerpad, of course, I know a lot about Makerpad, but I'm conscious that people that might have tuned in today might not know as much. So do you want to give the audience a little bit of an overview about, what Makerpad is and how you came up with it and really, and also what you built it on? I'm quite interested to understand a little bit more about that as well.
yeah, so Makerpad originally, I mean, yeah, it's more or less the same stack now. It's built with Webflow as the website. I think originally I had it so that it was a Typeform to sign up, so you could do a Stripe payment through Typeform. So I would just charge through that, and then I'd automatically send an email to a new sign up to say, like, you've got access. So I think it was Zapier. Send the email that said you've got access. The password is bananas, and this is the page that is like the private page. So it's just a private page on Webflow. And I just gave people a password, which actually was bananas, to go and look at any of the like content I put up. So that was the start in January 2019. And yeah, I mean, it's a educational platform, really. It's a tutorial site. And we've just done a ton of content since then. And things have escalated and grown bigger. We have Airtable for our database. We now use MemberStack for all of our membership pieces. So that isn't now a Typeform with a password. It's actually baked into like Webflow, and there's like logic that hides pages and pieces from certain people. And what else? We use Circle for our forum software, so where people can chat, ask questions, get help. But I often go into like, we've got to build this thing, and then I'll like over engineer it. And I think this is the same with no code in general, that lots of people think I have to like build this thing from scratch with a bunch of different tools. It could easily be like one tool out there that just does the job. So I'm guilty of that all the time. My brain automatically thinks, what 5-6 tools can I put together to build this feature, when there's probably something that does it already or does it well enough. Like our job board was one example that I did. I built it ourselves, and it was nice to have. It just wasn't necessary. So we just could have just used off the shelf software, which we have in the end.
Awesome. And I suppose that sort of brings me on to my next question about how much right now are you spending sort of your time actually building, or how much, because when you scale a business and you're a founder of business, of course you started as the builder, but of course as you've scaled this company or the community, do you do much building now, or do you have other people that do building? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm still the only person who builds anything on the site. We had some people come in to like help refactor stuff or reorganize some things over the last couple of years, but it's mostly me building new things. Like I built on Friday, I built the new sort of dashboard system so that when people log in, they can add stuff to their own dashboard. They can like tick off tutorials, add tools, and things like that. So I'm still very much in there, and I don't know whether it's because it's built on top of the version I first built in January 2019. So it's a bit like explaining that to someone is probably a bit daunting and a bit scary for someone to take on. So I'm the one who goes in and out. but it is simple when you understand like my horrible naming conventions of div blocks and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's not too complex. But what I realized whilst running Makerpad is I am a maker. I'm not much of a manager. Like I can do some parts of it, but that's not what I sort of gravitate towards. So I've tried to make sure that whatever I'm doing, there is like maker time for myself. So I need that
Mm.
outlet to be able to do stuff, create stuff, and whether that was content or building products, things that I sort of needed to have that balance. So I still I like doing that. I like working in the business and not necessarily on the business as much.
Great. And the thing is, I have so many questions, Ben, and I think one of the ones that I really want to pull out is more around how you built the community around Makerpad, because you say that you are a builder of products, but a lot of people would say that you are actually a builder of community. And, how do you feel about people branding you as, a great community builder? Um,
I, I don't really know because I think I got unfairly given some clout from my time at Product Hunt, where there was already a good community, and I was there over the time that it became like a really big, great community. I don't know how much credit I should give myself for any of that piece, but I was certainly one of the vocal people in the community and just like spoke to everyone and knew people and they knew me and we just sort of connected on a bunch of things. And I think that's a lot of what community is just connecting around a shared goal or a shared interest. So when it was Makerpad and I was just building stuff on Twitter and sharing things originally, like this is how I built an Airbnb clone, people were naturally like gravitating towards that type of content because I was the only one really showing that sort of stuff. So it was easy in those days to just have, I say in those days, it was only like 2 years ago, but it was easy then to like build a community without really thinking about building a community. And I think a lot of people nowadays are always thinking, how do I build a really good community? And I don't know that I had to think about it all that much whenever I've done it. And that might
mm,
be a good thing because it's just like a natural extension of the interest that people had around what I was doing. So it's easier then when people come around. But I think there are things that people need to do. You need to figure out like what's the right format for your community. Do you want it to be you just come here to ask for help, or is it a place where you want people to hang out 8 hours a day? Is it a peer-to-peer thing? Is it like one person and an audience type thing, which isn't really community? And things change all the time. I don't know. No, like I don't think of myself as a community expert whatsoever, but I think we've definitely helped grow the no code community as a whole. And even when we were going through our acquisition of talking around like what is the Makerpad community, like yes, we've got thousands on our newsletter and thousands who come to the site, but it's not necessarily that we own those people in our community forum and they're speaking every day about stuff. But I think that's actually good. There's people all over Twitter that talk about no code all day, every day, and they should speak about it where it's best heard. So I think as long as we as a brand are front and center in the no code conversations, podcasts, blog, all of that stuff, I think that is part of the Makerpad community, the no code community. We want to be synonymous with like the no code community, and people are thinking of us like that. So that's how I'm seeing
mm.
it. So I think we've been lucky with the growth of the community in general. But yeah,
I think that's a really nice way of looking at it. You don't see community as a Slack channel or a Facebook group of people, or, you know, you see community more as a kind of like across all of the channels, as well as those people that interact in your site. And you become part of the community and the community becomes part of yours. And they're kind of intertwined, which I really like, actually. I've never really heard anyone talk about it like that before.
yeah, I think if you Like when I would think every now and then, I think, oh, I wish the engagement was more on the forum, or like I wish because we had Slack originally, and then we changed to Circle as a forum because I thought there's better to have like threads of information and longer form content. And I mean, Slack feels busy, but it feels busy. It's not necessarily a very valuable community that you're part of. Some are, but some just sit there on your desktop for months, years, however long. And I just think it's like if you think of companies like Figma or Webflow, their community isn't a Slack channel that they own or like a forum that they own. They have actually both of them have Slack communities, I believe, that are run by the community themselves that set them up, and they both have. Well, Webflow certainly has a forum where you ask questions about solving things with Webflow, but the Webflow community is anyone who uses Webflow or anyone who's talked about Webflow, and they talk about it on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, like everywhere. And I don't know if it's something that Webflow like did on purpose or if it's just if you build an awesome product and people talking about you globally in meetups and everywhere else, like that is your community. And just how do you continue to keep feeding those flywheels and feeding those people where they are? I think is a combination of things.
Is that maintenance of that virality? Like, how do you create something that's going to go viral and then it's going to continue to become viral? And then somebody's going to tell somebody who's then going to talk positively about it. And yeah, how do you do that? And I think you guys have done, really well at that. As you mentioned, you were in the right time at the right place with a great product. All of those things seem to be the main component. And a lot of people have expressed interest with regards to pricing. Now, this is sort of a really big topic in the maker space. It's when should you start charging people for the value that you provide? And I mean, specifically for you, a Makerpad, was there a point in time that you're like, I'm going to have to charge for this? Or did you kind of think about that in advance? How did that work?
I've had like almost zero thought process into pricing, and I'm not one that knows a lot about it. But what I did worked for us, which before I even launched Makerpad, I did the same sort of thing with a company called Nocode. It was basically tutorials. It was the same. It was exactly the same thing, just like 5 months before. And before I launched that, I had an email list of 1,500 people from like writing a blog post or something. And I messaged them, said, this is what I'm going to launch. I'm going to launch a tutorial site where I will run through things I built without code, and you'll be able to access them for, I don't know, I think the first bit was like $49 for lifetime access at the very start. And it was just a Typeform link, as always. Emailed those people, and I had like 15 payments or something straight away without having a website or anything. So I charged before I had anything there. So I just thought, well, there's nothing that's going to make me want to do this or make me actually do this more than people who've paid me something. So those payments allowed me to think, right, okay, something here, let me do it. And I've never not charged for membership for Makerpad, but the numbers have literally always been made up. Like, there's no science that's gone into why I've done one price versus another. It's all just been, let's just test this price. And I think one of them was like, you just increase your pricing until people stop paying. And I know that like on some SaaS products, I'm sure that's like a great thing. But for us, it's just a strange thing to charge on because it's an educational community. So monthly never appealed to me, and it actually doesn't really appeal to our customers. There's always a small amount of people who would like it to be monthly, but if you don't learn something in that 1 month because life gets in the way or you're busy or whatever it is, you're then not having that value. So every month that you don't learn something, it's like you've got to convince someone to stay again and pay the next month. Whereas like Netflix, I know that I've watched something on Netflix every month for God knows how long since I've had it probably. So they're like no-brainer decisions. But with an educational company, it's different. And I think with the big companies like Coursera or Skillshare, I think they have huge numbers of people paying very small amounts of money. I didn't think that we needed to get to 1 million users to have $19 a year or whatever those prices are. So for me, it was like, well, why don't we do a lifetime membership model? It seemed easier. People didn't have to worry about another subscription. It's been our most popular tier we've launched, and that price has increased over time because it's like an ever growing resource of more and more content. Every time we do something, it just adds to that membership. So it was all just like guesswork and trial and error, really.
And do you know how many members you have off the top of your head?
There's like
Ish.
9,800 members
Yeah,
today.
that's amazing. Well, congratulations. We look forward to getting the 10,000 announcement very soon.
I know.
Um, well, hopefully we can bring you some more members from this. So yeah, if you're listening, go and sign up for Makerpad. Check out the
200 we
lifetime
need.
deal.
Yeah, 200 people listening we need.
Exactly. So the next thing that I'm really interested about, and I think all of our listeners will agree, is this recent acquisition or merger or acquisition that you've gone through with Zapier. I mean, it was going to come up today. My first question is, how did they find you, or did you reach out to them? Like, who was it? How did that happen?
Well, I knew Wade. I'd had dinner with him and a few other people when we were at the Nocode conf in San Francisco in 2019. Zapier were one of the early partners that were on Makerpad, so we'd sort of done some work with them, and we just knew each other from a distance for a while. And then I did a tweet about like the top most popular tools on Makerpad, thinking like August last year, 2020. And someone replied to that something and said Airtable or Zapier should buy Makerpad ASAP and like tag them. And then Wade, the CEO of Zapier, emailed that to me and said, "Did you see this? He's not wrong. Let's have a chat." So that's how it actually happened. So I owe a lot to Twitter.
That's amazing. So it was almost like you had this kind of lukewarm lead or relationship or something where you knew each other in passing before. He obviously didn't dislike you, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, and
Not.
then, yeah, just the awareness and I suppose your community doing the work for you in a way, in sort
Yeah,
of
I think that's
sharing that
probably like a
information.
really sorry. There's probably like a really under like underrated way of like trying to get acquired. And it wasn't that we were trying to get acquired, but I think looking back on it, if you partner with tools that you're helping get customers or helping get business or helping their existing customers, whatever it is, and you find ways to consistently do that, if you're building like a community like we built, if there's like a really strong correlation of the audience and everything else, I think it's almost an big companies you partner with over time. If you show them the value you add, like they'll notice and want to explore those options, I think. And it's often like the partnership turns into an acquisition and those things happen. I think been a few recently of like what was it, HubSpot acquiring the Hustle, like things like that. I'm sure there's just like it's probably a similar story of the correlation of the community, the audience, the overlap, and things like that. So yeah.
And are you seeing any more other companies buying up very community focused businesses? Because I mean, we know that communities are really quite hard work to build. It seems to be that there's no real science to building them. It's just, grit and determination and continuing on the same path enough for people to notice you. So maybe that was their move, is to kind of acquire these community-based companies. Are you seeing that anywhere else?
I haven't really. I'm seeing like a few like Stripe acquiring indie hackers. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or something? That was definitely an example of the same type of thing as like our community being acquired by Zapier, I think. And yeah, like I mentioned, HubSpot and the Hustle, Insider and Morning Brew. There's a few of these that it's no small feat to like build up a leading community in your space, have an engaged community, and have a vocal community that like and has a powerful brand and all of that stuff. I think we will see more of it, but I wonder what like the bigger trends that come out of that are, whether it's people are creating communities because they want to get hired and they think they want to get acquired. I don't know if that will work, but we'll see.
Awesome. And in terms of your independence or dependence on Zapier and things like that, have you got very strict agreements in terms of, how much control you will maintain, or, how together or separate you are from Zapier? Like, was that involved in the contracts?
Yeah, we talked about like some level of that. There's nothing really strict put into writing anywhere, but it was Makerpad is going to remain independent. We're a company within Zapier. We have our team, we do our stuff. I laid out what the vision was and what we're trying to achieve. And Wade and Zapier said, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's do that. So it's just been like a supportive, let's do this. I think we'll lean on them for things like inside the business things, like figuring contracts and all of that sort of stuff, which has been things I've pieced together over the years. And then things, just simple things of like what Zapier has learned about their SEO growth or content, like how they manage a lot of content going out all the time and things like that that we can learn from that they've done. But it doesn't really change any of our strategy for what we're trying to build, which is what we want, and that's what they want. And I think, yeah, it's going to be a really good relationship, and we're really excited for it.
Amazing. And I've got to ask, I mean, how did you work out the pricing for that? Was that another kind of fly off, the wall, or did you get someone in to help you with the pricing, or how did you figure the deal out?
Well, I mean, it was certainly my first time doing anything like that, and it was Zapier's first time doing anything like that. So it was just a case of like they come forward with an offer, and we go back with what we think is fair, and you just figure it out that way. There was nothing really to write home about in terms of how that came around. I think they put a price on like the value they saw Makerpad was, and we went from there.
Awesome. Well, I don't think it's not something you've revealed, is it?
Unfortunately, I cannot.
Oh, I was going to ask you to reveal it here today, but I mean, I did think I'd be pushing my luck asking you to tell me the deal.
I'm sure you won't be the last person to ask, and you're not the
No.
first. But it's one of those. And
Damn
I know
it.
people get annoyed of like, why can't people say it? It's not necessarily that like me personally, I don't want to say a number. It's just like this is what happens in deals. It's part of the legal
Mm-mm.
process. It changes like how other companies are acquired. It changes like there's all sorts of knock-on effects that people don't think of, other than just like I just want to know how much. Like, and I get that because I'd
Yeah.
be the same. But it's just, when you go through one, I think you just think, okay, well, I've signed something that says I can't say, so that's how it is, and that's unfortunately how
Oh, and
this
that's
is.
fine. We're totally cool with that. It doesn't mean we're
Yeah,
not going to
yeah,
keep,
exactly.
asking.
No,
One
no,
day
exactly.
you
Yeah,
might slip up and accidentally say, and
yeah. Well,
then we all know.
let's hope not. Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to end the podcast session here. So I'm going to say thank you, Ben.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Right, so what we're going to do now is we are now just going to move just into the live stream. So this is the opportunity to ask you anything. This isn't being recorded. There is going to remain on the live stream, but this is the kind of exclusive part for all of you guys who have spent the time, with us live. So I'm going to go to our questions board here. We've got a few. Okay, so Ben Sears asks, hey Ben, do you have a favorite project you've seen built using no-code tools other than Makerpad, of course? Smiley face.
My favorite story is Tessa, who started as an early Makerpad member. She built a bunch of different things and tried different tools and like sort of struggled through it like we all do. And then she has built automations for gyms and fitness studios, and has now like got funding, like got investment from Earnest Capital, the same investors that we had, and has gone full time on it. And she's also a creator in residence at Makerpad. So she just launched her first tutorial series on like how to create a membership site. with Webflow and Outsetter. So it's literally got all of the check marks of started as a member, has a company, is funded, is full time, and now has come back to like contribute to the community even further. Which, I mean, that's going to be a lot to top that story for me. But yeah, I love that.
I love that as well. I mean, do you think you'd be able to connect us and maybe I could get her on here to do one
Yeah,
for
definitely.
the audience?
Yes.
That would be amazing. I'm all for showcasing all the founders that are doing awesome stuff, making things. Okay, so next question. Oh, we already asked this one during the session, which was from Matt Quinn, which was how far along was Makerpad before you started charging for it? And you said it as soon as the membership came in. Was that correct?
I mean, it was like minus a week. So I did it before. I charged before I even launched the site. And then, yeah, when the Makerpad site was actually like around, it was charged on day one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all learning a lot from you, and in terms of how you've done that as well. You know, there's a lot of people, and I'm sure you know Kieran from Launch MB and Max and
Yeah.
people like that, who are kind of teaching us to kind of put up pricing pages before we launch. So I built freelancenotion.com, which is a operating system for freelancers, and I had the idea, but I just put up the landing page and I actually launched the pre-sale before I even really started building it, because that's what I was advised to do. And actually, you're right. Once you've had people pay for your product, there is nothing more motivational to make you finish it than other
Yeah.
people's money. Because you don't want to let them down, do you?
No, exactly. Yeah, nothing will panic you more than a bunch of money from people like strangers on the internet that are hoping for something. But I mean, it's one of those things that you think, oh yeah, how come I haven't been told that before? But if you look back at other launches, other companies or whatever, it's just there's so many patterns that come up. You think, oh, well, I should just try that. I should try pre-launching something and having. I think one thing I tried to do with a card course, and that was before Makerpad. And I think I reduced the price for more. Like every time more people signed up, I reduced the price. So it was like pricing tiers. If 50 people signed up, it would go to like $200. If it went to 100 people who signed up, it would go down to like 150. So then people would just like share it more, and the eventual price would be lower.
Oh,
But
I
that
haven't
was
heard
something I just
about
made
that
up.
one. No, no, I like that. And I think we should be brave to try pricing stuff out. You know, like what's the worst that could happen? You know, people buy it. Like that's literally the worst thing that could happen. And you can always change the price. And I think that's something important to sort of talk about in terms of other industries. You know, look at what has happened to gym equipment on Amazon since the lockdown. You know, the prices have changed. You know, pricing isn't a static thing.
No, and yeah, people they think that it should be this will be the price and that's it, but it is very fluid, and people can just change it whenever. A price, like whatever you're selling, is worth whatever someone's willing to pay for it. So you don't know what that is until like you've made up that price and it's on there. I mean, there's hopefully Stripe will make this a bit easier in the future where like you can combine people into like similar tiers. But yeah, for now, my Stripe has got all sorts of different types of people on different plans. But
Cool. So Sergio asks, what do you think are the most important aspects when building a community?
well, I think it's figuring out why you're building one. Um, some people build a community because they think they have to or they should because they're going to get like free advertising, free eyeballs on it, and have like people advocating their product. But I think it should just be like, is this something where a community makes sense? Is it a shared interest that people can learn off each other? Is it something that a connection to someone else who also is interested in this thing will make that experience better for someone else? And then you can easily think of things behind that. And Greg Eisenberg, who talked a lot about communities, told me this analogy before, and I just have stolen it since. But I always credit him. That's fine. But he said, just think of it like your dream house party you'd ever go to, and so you walk in the door, your favorite music is playing. They've got like all your favorite finger food on the table. There's some people there you can see that you recognize, some people that you don't. Someone comes up to you and gives you your favorite drink, starts talking to you about something, and then starts like introducing you to other people and gets the conversation going. And it's just like you can sort of visualize what that feels like and looks like in that scenario. So, what would that look like if someone's joining your community? Like, try and think of those things of getting someone in and making them feel right at home straight away.
Yeah, I love that analogy. I use the same analogy when I'm talking to corporations about building communities, particularly if they're looking at, starting a Facebook group or like just going and interacting on Twitter, like how they should do it. And I always introduce it to them like attending a party. Like every party has different people in it. Even within parties, different people socialize with different people and have different conversations. And like, let's face it, most of the action happens when you take someone to the bar for a drink. So that's when you go to the DMs. That's where like the real quality conversations will happen. Yes, you can get involved with conversations. And I always talk to people about, imagine that posting just about how amazing something that you have just done out to thousands of people is like you walking into a party and just announcing about yourself as soon as you walk in, and you just expect everybody to listen. You can't expect just by tweeting out things like that you're going to get followings. You really need to like engage with people, and I think the same is said for those communities. I've got a
Yeah.
great one here from Matt Quinn, actually. It says, weird hearing Ben's voice, always assumed he was a Londoner. It's your choice if you want to address this. Smiley sticking out tongue face. So Ben, where are you from?
I'm Welsh. I'm from Cardiff. So I haven't got a very strong Welsh accent, which is probably a good thing, I think. But I am by no stretch English or have any English accent, so that'll clear it up. And actually, one thing, when I first launched this is just like a random story, but this is when I first launched like tutorials on Nocode, which was before Makerpad. I think I launched it on Product Hunt, and someone said one of my reviews was, I really like the idea behind this, but the guy teaching is so dreadfully dull that like I don't want to listen to it. And I was like, oh fuck. So now I don't ever want to do a tutorial ever again. But it's hard to do tutorials. It's hard to like record your voice, be on a camera, speaking to no one, and trying to say, and now I'm gonna add a button. Like now I'm gonna click. It's like hopefully I've learned a bit more. Like I hired people better than me to do tutorials now, so hopefully that's all cleared up.
I'm the same. This is the reason why I decided to do a podcast that was focused around interviewing people rather than talking myself, because I just don't think I could hold a conversation with a fake audience that I can't see. I need to have somebody to bounce off of, to have kind of like that one-to-one connection, which is why I'm actually really enjoying Twitter Spaces at the minute. I don't know, have you been on Twitter Spaces yet?
I haven't yet, and I hadn't had early access to it. And I did my first Clubhouse last week. It's the only one I've ever been in, and I think it was fine to participate in. I just don't know when like people have the time to like know when to do it. Like if I don't know. But actually it was easier to have listening whilst I was doing other things than a podcast is. I think with a podcast I'm listening to the conversation and I can't do anything else at the same time. But with like Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces, I think I can listen and do something else. But yeah,
I feel like it's very much like I use it as like working in a coffee shop, because I'm really missing that at the minute. So I live by myself. I'm like typing away on my laptop, and I found it really useful to have Twitter Spaces in the background, because it is like being in a coffee shop, and occasionally someone might say something interesting enough that you might say, hey, hang on, I've got something to say about that. But I like that. I mean, are you able to host spaces?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I was for a while actually. I've never done
one. I'm just going to put it out to the audience. Like, if we jump off here and jump onto Twitter, would anyone be up for jumping into a space with Ben just for like 15 minutes? I mean, you've got to comment and say yes. We're not going to do it unless you actually comment and say yes right now. So that's up to you, audience. If there's anyone actually still listening out there, we shall see.
And no pressure to say yes. But
Huh?
I said no pressure for anyone to say yes.
No pressure. So there's just a couple more questions. Most of them are related to the Zapier partnership. So Brendan McAdams asks another one. Will Zapier partnership mean new feature directions for you in any way, shape, or form?
I don't think there's anything like. I mean, Zapier and Makerpad are very different companies, and I think Zapier has the product stuff like lockdown. I think they're very good at product, and they're very good at their product. And our product isn't really a product; it's just a site that allows you to consume content. So there might be some crossover with things, and it might be like you can log in with your Zapier account, stuff like that. I'm sure will happen over time, but with like direct feature things, I don't think so. I think we're just focusing on how can we get to more people. How do we get as many people as possible to hear about no code and learn about no code? So that's what we're focused on. And anything I build or we do is just going to be focused on that, I think. So I don't think there's going to be anything drastic in that area.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to kind of know that you have your directions. And I suppose you are a little bit different. And I think sometimes these companies want to stay out of these things a little bit because you've obviously, done well getting to where you are here. The last thing they want to do is like focus on pivoting you in any sort of direction that's going to affect the stuff to do. And in fact, most people have actually responded. So we've had two people that said that they were up for Twitter Spaces, but a couple of people who said they just prefer to just stay here for another 5 minutes and listen to us chat about stuff.
Like
So
me, yeah,
we'll
I'm
do
on me.
that instead. Whereabouts in Wales are you?
I'm not there now. I'm
Where are you
originally from
now?
Cardiff. I'm in Milton Keynes, or yeah, nearest.
Oh, you're just down the
Milton
road.
Keynes.
You're just down the road from me then. So we will have to grab a beer. I'm Windsor way, so
Okay, yeah, that's
not
not far then. Yeah.
not far. Reading's kind of no, Reading's kind of in the middle, maybe. I don't know. But it's nice that, the UK is so small, and I'd really like to see some actual no code meetups eventually, when we can do that.
Yeah,
What do you
we were
think?
we were planning on doing a global meetup like rollout literally
Mm.
as the pandemic started last year. So I'm sure when we're allowed to do that, we will start picking that back up again. And I think there's a lot of no code folks in the UK, and also lots of the companies that I've invested in through the fund have like are UK based or Europe, which
Mm.
isn't like I'm not hunting out European startups necessarily or UK startups, but it just so happens that quite a few of them are like from the UK, which is awesome.
Can you say who you've invested in yet? Is that public
Yeah, we've
or
got
what can
yeah,
you?
we've got
Yeah.
some that are public. So we invested in Circle, we invested in Superbase. So they are British
Yeah.
guys, but they live in Singapore right now. Causal. So there's two guys from Oxford Uni that I think are living in London. Trying to think other UK. Not sure if any more UK that are public yet, but there's Stagger, which is like an awesome team in the US.
What
Array,
do they do?
which one? Stagger.
Stagger. Yeah. Stagger.
Stagger's like a way to visually storytell your brand. So they pull in things from your Instagram. So like the Makerpad Instagram page, you'd hook it up and then it would pull through like how to visually tell the story of your brand, the colors, like what you'd say, what images and things would go well in posts and things like that. So it's more of a creator tool, I think, which
I like that. Brand
yeah.
continuity and storytelling. There are so many organized. I mean, I as a marketer, I would use that and I would pull that into my strategy stuff in corporations I'm working with because they just struggle so hard to actually keep consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Well that's the URL, stagger.com.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, I mean that's just something that I'm terrible at, and I saw it and I thought, yeah, this is great. I think this is part of what should be funded by us. There's also Stacker, which London guys again.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's quite a few S and C startups for in the first quarter we invested in, which is just
Mm.
coincidence as well.
Mm. Awesome. And in terms of I suppose the final question is just around recommended tools. I'm always asking everybody that comes on about, apart from some of the ones you've mentioned that you invest in, are there any kind of like tools that you think are a little bit underrated that you think people should be, going and having a look at?
Um, there's just so many. Obviously, all the tools that we invest in are ones I think that are just getting started. So Stacker is one that I think will be huge, and it's just so simple to use, and there's so many use cases for it. We really like Glide as well, which is a similar sort of use case.
Mm-mm.
Um, and what else? Trying to think of the ones I can mention without kicking myself.
No, don't worry,
Because
because
there's
I've
like
actually thought of another question.
yeah,
The
okay, because I
fund.
can't think of
It's
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I will distract us from that. The fund. I mean, we haven't really touched much on your fund today, and we're not going to go into too much detail, but I mean, as a fund, does that mean that you've gone around raising money from other people and then you as Makerpad invest? Is that kind of how it worked?
It's a rolling fund, which is like
Hmm.
a semi-new structure, which means people can subscribe essentially to like do a quarter at a time. So there's people who the minimum's 5K a quarter for 4 quarters. So people pay 20K, and then each quarter, I, as the fund manager, will go and invest in companies. It was sort of like branded as the Makerpad fund, but it's not actually affiliated with Makerpad, other than me being in both. So
Mm.
yeah, it's just like the traditional fund. It would be you go and spend 6 to 12 months raising all this money and then investing that. But this is now a way that you can just like set it up and the fund grows over time, um, and you invest that way. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome. And if people want to get involved in your fund, where should they go? How can they give you their money?
Just go to bentossell.com. There's a link on there that people can see.
Awesome. So I have two final questions from the audience. They asked me if they could have two more. So I've said yes. Right. So the first one is from, apologies if I pronounce this wrong. I'm so sorry. Ayush Sharma says, does the term enterprise no code make your eyes roll?
No, it doesn't at all. I think like this is where the biggest opportunity for the impact of no code is in the workplace.
Yep.
And there's tons of big platforms out there, Uncork, that do a lot of this enterprise no code stuff. And I think for it to have like the actual democratization of software development, we need huge enterprises
Mm.
to adopt this type of stuff, this way of working, and people to just know about it to get in the mainstream. So yeah, I think it's a great positive step that should happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with that. I mean, I started off my marketing journey sort of very early on in the cryptocurrency space, so back in sort of like 2016 time. And part of me wished I'd stayed there for longer to start seeing it move into enterprise. I kind of became one of those people that was kind of like, oh, when this becomes enterprise, it's not going to be worth doing. And then it became enterprise. And I kind of like exited too early out of that industry. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being part of this no code movement where we can actually start helping organizations understand how to improve their minimal viable stack, is what I'm kind of terming it, to understand how they can build stuff with a minimal viable stack, roll it up, see if it works, see if it takes by their organization, and then put it into all of their processes, and free up some of their really talented developers, rather than correcting typos on HTML, to actually build more things on the back end. So I'm really looking forward to that movement.
Yeah, I think also
So
big companies like always talk about their innovation labs and having little teams that like are about innovation, but have not really had the tools to do that until now. I don't think. Like, you could spin up these innovation labs and have an enterprise no code tool be the thing that you launch everything on, and that could be really quick. And you could actually have small things, little projects come out of those things.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that angle, to be honest. That's a great angle. We'll have to talk. I've got a friend at PwC who's in the innovation space, so we'll see if like that's the kind of thing that she thinks would get going there. So final question, which I think is a nice question. Thanks for this, Jackson Reed asks, what do you wish there was more of in the no code community?
Stories, like actual stories. I think a lot of what I hear is, or a lot of what I see is, I'm building a no code thing for no code people. And as much as that's like helpful, I think for us to make sure that no code becomes bigger than just the no code community on Twitter, it needs to be like, what are actual stories from people, like someone like Tessa, like I mentioned earlier, she's built something with no code for the fitness industry. And it's like, that's an awesome story that isn't like, I'm building a no code thing for no code people. But this is similar. This happens everywhere. Like startups, there's startups for helping you build startups. And when there was the drop shipping wave, it's like, we'll help you how to be a better drop shipper. So we need to just like be careful of, we don't want to become drop shipping 2.0. We need to become like this different infrastructure shift and push out like the actual real stories that actually people can understand and connect with, rather than just keep on saying no code for no code.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. You know, thank you so much for sharing that, Ben. And I think part of this podcast series is all about like trying to share, first of all, founder stories. And I want to get more founders like that have stories to share that aren't just dog fooding their product. They're actually like pushing it out there into industries and making a real difference. So, you know, thank you so much for your time today. I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat. I hope you guys in the audience have as well. Thank you so much for your questions. If you want to sign up for more updates on the podcast, it's launchnocode.com. You can sign up there. If you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, there's also an opportunity to register your interest there, and we can chat and see how we can get your brand involved with Launch No Code. So thank you, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon. We're going to stop the live stream now. Bye-bye.